In this WrestleTalk news, WWE has no plans for a SmackDown star, Rampage's worst ratings ever, and our review of Raw.
Support WrestleTalk!
Since Triple H has taken over WWE, it's been pretty much sunshine and rainbows in WWE, at least from a fan perspective. More and better wrestling, storylines that make sense, and a bunch of returns from released stars to inject the product with a bit of life. However, there may be some casualties along the way. You may have noticed that there are certain wrestlers that have been off your screens for a while, and that situation might not be changing for one wrestler in particular. Aliyah was being featured in the Women's Tag Team Championship picture alongside her teammate Raquel Rodriguez, but she suffered an injury in September that sidelined her from action, meaning Raquel found a new partner in Shotzi. And now, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it seems Aliyah's absence from our TV isn't actually down to her injury anymore, as she reportedly has been cleared to come back, but creative has nothing for her right now. Granted, WWE is currently pushing a bunch of other women in the division right now, with Raw featuring 2 triple threat matches to determine a #1 contenders match for the champion, but over on SmackDown, things aren't looking quite so peachy, with Ronda as champ, the fumbling of Liv Morgan, Raquel, Shotzi, Natalya? I think? Emma returned, but hasn't been featured much since, and others that aren't featured in-ring as much, like B-Fab, Zelina Vega, and Valhalla. SmackDown could do with some bodies, but it doesn't seem like Aliyah will be one of them. How would you book Aliyah on SmackDown? Let us know in the comments. Things aren't looking too hot across the way in AEW either right now, as last week's episode of Rampage drew the show's worst ratings so far. Back in its usual time slot, the show drew an average of 361,000 viewers, and got an 18-49 demo rating of 0.08, which is a record low. I can't wait for it to start mattering again soon. I'm sure it'll happen any day now, right, Tony? Any day now. One day. Someday. Please? I know you're probably sick of hearing about CM Punk and AEW, but there is an update on the situation, so talk about it. I must. While it seems pretty cut and dry at this point as to what happened, the investigation results, and the outcome of what we're going to see from Punk and AEW going forward, that being nothing, it seems there are some still holding on to the idea of this whole thing being a work, or it at least being changed into one. According to Dave Meltzer on Twitter, who was asked if CM Punk leaving AEW was a work and leading to a return, it is currently not an angle. Many hope it will become one, but the odds are strong that it won't happen. I wonder why the odds would be strong that it won't happen. No idea myself. Luke is unfortunately at home with COVID. Get well soon, Luke. So now it's time for my review of Raw in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being awesome pledge hammers on our Patreon page, the Kessel Run DX Solo, and the Findicator, Finn Brennan. You can get your own shoutout and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. This show began with the pre-advertised match of the Usos defending their undisputed tag belts against Riddle and Elias. Except it wasn't Elias, as earlier today they showed Solo Sikoa beating up Elias and writing him out of the match. So instead, after a fun promo from the Bloodline, Riddle revealed his partner was instead going to be Kevin Owens. This is good. The match itself was a bit of fun, with a nice subtlety we've come to expect from Bloodline stories, this time with Sami Zayn saving Jey Uso from a dive from Riddle, allowing Solo Sikoa to get in Owens' way for some distraction shenanigans. The Usos managed to hit the 1D on Riddle to retain, and they'll be having another tag title match this Friday with Sheamus and Butch, after it was revealed later in the show that Drew McIntyre was not medically cleared to compete. Post-match, Kevin Owens chased off everyone with a chair, and of course he hit both Usos with the chair, but didn't connect with Sami. Again, lovely little subtle detail, but unfortunately for Riddle, he didn't chase off Solo Sikoa, who beat down Riddle with a Samoan spike, then wrapped a chair around his neck and did a hip attack in the corner. This appeared to have at the very least written Riddle off for a little bit, so I'm curious what's next here. Regardless, this made Solo look pretty great with the beatdown on Elias to start the show, and then this. There were 2 women's triple threat matches on this show to determine what would be the #1 contenders match to Bianca Belair's Raw Women's Championship next week, which is a very neat idea. The first of the 2 pitted Bayley against Asuka and Rhea Ripley, but prior to the match, Becky Lynch came out through the crowd and reminded everyone that she and Bayley hadn't fought in a singles match in over 3 years, which is a great way to make a potential matchup feel special. And speaking of feeling special, Rhea Ripley then made her entrance and had a lengthy stare down with Becky Lynch. And if that's going to be the WrestleMania program, yes, please. That is a featured match that doesn't need the title to feel special. The triple threat itself was very fun, and my big takeaway from it was how somehow Rhea Ripley has improved in the ring, and she was already great. She just has this level of explosiveness that you don't see elsewhere in the women's division, aside from maybe Asuka. And of course this match gets 5 stars because it featured the over-the-top spot of the heels going, "You, me, get her," which Ripley just straight up denied. What I liked most about this match though was the fact it felt like a triple threat with all 3 people interacting pretty frequently, and not a rotating singles match where one person rests on the outside for a while. However, what I wasn't a huge fan of was Bayley winning this match. I've got nothing against Bayley, but we've seen Bayley versus Bianca multiple times now, and the potential prospect of seeing it again is not very exciting. I think giving Rhea or Asuka this win would have benefited both of them a little more, but it's difficult to say as giving Bayley yet another loss would also have been detrimental. It's a tough one to book out of, but that's what happens when you book the 6 top women in 2 triple threats. Seth Rollins came out and looked, I'm not gonna say bad, but I'm also not going to say good either. Bobby Lashley and Rollins will be fighting next week, and whoever wins will be the #1 contender to the United States title. So no matter who wins, it's something we've already seen. Nice. I jest, but in order to build to this match, Lashley came out and confronted Rollins, who tried to get under his skin by reminding him he lost to Brock Lesnar, and saying he'll never be as good as Brock Lesnar, and he wishes he could have had the career that Brock Lesnar had. And hold up, I thought Rollins was a babyface now. He came across like a massive dick here, and hey-ho, if that's what you want to go for in your no babyfaces, no heels company, then sure. It just didn't vibe with me. They then brawled where Lashley inadvertently speared P.T. Williams. I know Luke isn't here, but P.T. Williams was on the show, so I assume this gets 5 stars. Austin Theory was then interviewed backstage to ask his thoughts about the previous segment, where he said Rollins and Lashley were the past and he was the now, which, yeah, he is right. He was then interrupted by Mustafa Ali, who said he wants a shot at the title, and Theory says, yeah, alright. During the entrances for their match, the commentary mentioned how despite Mustafa Ali being born in the States and being a former police officer, he never felt good enough or like he belonged, and the United States title was another step to belonging, which is actually quite the compelling character motivation. Sure is a shame we didn't get Ali telling us that, or cutting an impassioned promo about it, and instead it was just mentioned as an aside on commentary. This match was going pretty well, aside from one scary botch where the pair fell off the middle rope together, but then Dolph Ziggler decided to ruin everything by attacking Austin Theory to cause a DQ. Ali was understandably quite annoyed about Ziggler ruining his title opportunity for basically no reason, but then Theory laid both of them out. Not the best of finishes. Now I guess I should talk about JBL's Poker Invitational as it influenced a couple of matches here. There were several segments throughout the show of JBL's Poker Invitational. JBL said he wanted it to be as grand a spectacle as WrestleMania, so naturally he invited Tamina, Dana Brooke, Alpha Academy, and Akira Tozawa. Dexter Lumis and Johnny Gargano weren't invited, but Dexter had a big bag of money, so he was then allowed. Comedy, I think. In segment number 2, Chad Gable and Luke Gallows got into a shouting match to see who could shout shoosh or nerd louder, respectively. Comedy, I think. Dexter Lumis bet his axe that he carries with him, and Dominic Mysterio tried to steal chips from Akira Tozawa. In segment number 3, The Miz appeared outside the room and tried to enter despite not receiving an invitation, but JBL said it's a $50 buy-in, and Miz said he doesn't have the cash right now, and tried to give JBL his Rolex instead. JBL then told him his Rolex was fake, and Miz made this face at him and then walked off. Comedy, I think. And in the 4th and final segment, Baron Corbin was caught cheating in poker, and he gets into it with the rest of the OC. Everyone walks off to fight, and then Dexter Lumis and Johnny Gargano take the rest of the money, which looks an awful lot like the exact amount they walked in with. That didn't stop Candice LeRae nearly swearing in another backstage segment after seeing the money though, and she, Gargano, and Dexter Lumis walked off to do money things. Comedy, I think. This then led into the OC versus Alpha Academy and Baron Corbin, where Chad Gable and Luke Gallows had a shouting match to see who could shout shoosh or nerd louder respectively. It worked so well the first time. Chad Gable is such a good wrestler. Please give him a proper singles run at some point. The OC won with the Magic Killer, and JBL complained about it loudly on commentary. Dominic Mysterio then beat Akira Tozawa quite quickly, and hey, Akira's wrestling, and he's quite good. He should wrestle more. The Street Profits protected Tozawa from a post-match beatdown. And then we had the main event of Alexa Bliss versus Becky Lynch versus Nikki Cross to see who would face Bayley next week. And after Becky and Bayley's interaction early in the night, it makes sense that Alexa Bliss won. Oh. Damage Control came out and beat up Becky when it looked like she was going to win, allowing Alexa to hit the Twisted Bliss on Nikki for the win. It's a much needed win for Alexa, and she'll face Bayley next week, where you'd expect Bayley to win. Unless Alexa in this match teased hitting the sister Abigail, which honestly was the most interesting part. So what if she turns heel next week and goes nuts and joins Bray Wyatt, or I guess turns babyface, because Bray Wyatt's still a baby, whatever, leading to an Alexa versus Bianca title match with new character Alexa. I wouldn't hate it. Overall, this was a solid night of wrestling, but story progression was generally lacking. The women's triple threats were nice, but with questionable finishes. The Bloodline stuff was nice, but JBL's Poker Invitational can f*** off. This was a 3 out of 5 show. Thankfully, the scary botch on this show didn't result in any injuries, but we sure have seen some crazy ones this year in wrestling. Check out our list on Parts of Unknown of the scariest injuries we've seen this year now.
Here's a question for the comments. What's the biggest boo-boo you've ever had? For this slightly morbid annual iteration of the insane injuries list, I asked this question to The Office. Sully had a pipe fall on his head when he was a kid. Terry had surgery to remove a chickpea from her nose. I promise you that's real. Tempest got a concussion at school. Andy got a concussion trying to photobomb.